Hi, my name is Landinn de Marest. I live in Ontario. I have been the former Kingdom Deputy King and Kingdom Chatelaine for 5 years. I was also the branch chatelaine in the Seattle group, which is the largest group in our kingdom, for 5 years. I was also the social media deputy on the society social media team for 4 years. I ran the Twitter account, which is now X. I also worked at Twitter for 6 months before Elon Musk bought it. That was very exciting. And I'm also, but more importantly than any of that, I think the reason I feel qualified to give this kind of a class is because I am a senior technical recruiter for over 20 years. I work in the tech industry, and I would say the majority of people that I source, which is where you go out and find people, is via social media. That includes LinkedIn, to be fair. So a lot of what I do is on LinkedIn, but I've sourced candidates off of Twitter. I've sourced candidates off of LinkedIn, Facebook, one off of Instagram, and then various and sundry websites across the interwebs, if you will. So that's kind of why I'm qualified to teach this class. Did you see that? No, I'm sorry. So, I want to go over this because I was on the social media team. I had to familiarize myself with the actual approved social media platforms. I just want to go over this. I wrote this particular presentation so that it could be used for anyone, not just for social media officers or chatelaines. So I just want to be really clear. This is geared for anyone who wants to use social media. But obviously, I think it's important for chatelaines and social media officers to understand. So I just kind of want to go over this real quick. Social media is we're growing constantly. We do have approved platforms that are used for social media. And if you want to pilot a platform that is not listed below, contact your Kingdom social media officer. That is part of their duties. Now, I think everyone knows that you're required to maintain an official Facebook group, and you're encouraged to have an official. You have to have a Facebook page, and you're encouraged to have a Facebook group. This makes, social media, I don't know how many of you have 40, 50 Facebook groups you're in. They're all related to the SCA. I'm one of them. So just to kind of go over, I'm going to concentrate my presentation on those approved platforms. So if there's something on there that you don't see, it's because as of August of this year, when last time I updated it, this was had not changed. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, meetup.com, Pinterest, YouTube, Discord, and TikTok. Of them all, I personally have not used TikTok or Discord. So I want to make that perfectly clear. I have some information on them, but as to using them, I haven't used them, but this is more of a process than a tool. So just be really clear on that. Are there any questions? Okay. So as I said, I updated this. These are the most recent stats as of August when I gave this class at Penzic. So these are the platforms where adult users choose to spend their time, and this is minutes per day. So as you can see, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, and Reddit. Now, I think it's important this is anyone over 18. So I think it's really, really important to talk about the fact that we do have, for purposes of recruiting, we do have a demographic that we're hitting, and that demographic is 18 to 35. It is not 40 to 50. So most of the people that are using TikTok are going to be under the age of 35. That's not to say that people don't use TikTok, but the majority of the users that you want to target, they're going to be on TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, and a little bit on Reddit. So here's some TikTok demographics just to kind of give you. So you can see that 18 to 24 and 25 to 34, those are demographics. Look at how many people are actually in those bands. TikTok is still one of the most widely used platforms on the planet. There's 150 million active users, but it's booming and it's getting bigger every day. As I said, I'm a recruiter. I have several friends that have TikTok channels for recruiting. I know people that have they created their channel specifically to counter misinformation by people who don't have a recruiting background. So TikTok is ramping up and maturing. So I would recommend, if you don't have a TikTok account, or your group doesn't have one, talk to your social media officer and see if you can find someone in your group your local group that might be willing to manage that. It shouldn't take a lot of time. None of the postings should take a ton of time for anyone, either if they're a social media officer, if they're a chatelaine or a deputy of some kind. You don't need to spend hours and hours a day or even a week on any of these platforms. It's a matter of balancing the number of people, reaching the most people, and then balancing that with posting regularly. So Discord, this is a growing, this is really, really one of our growing platforms. And I really think that this is where we should be looking a lot more. It used to be, Discord was founded for gaming, but it really, really has matured beyond since that. It is growing quicker. And I think one of the things that we should think about for Discord is it allows us to form online communities. And there are a lot of people who don't like Facebook. They don't want to use Facebook in the under 35 crowd. Discord is really, really a good alternative for that. So something to keep in mind. According to the Harvard Business Review, Gen Z was eschewing traditional media for digital campfires, more intimate online destinations. I think that Discord has turned into what BBSs used to be for those of us that are a little bit more mature. Facebook, 25 to 34. This was from December, so a year ago. 23.7%, 18%. I think it's fair to notice that there's still a large number of people using that, but I promise you, I'm talking to people. I'm talking to folks that are under that 45, 35 demographic. Not a lot of people like to use Facebook, in part is because they think it's just used by the old folks, so to speak. Pinterest is a big one, and Pinterest is really, really huge for us because we're a very, very visual group. So I have a newcomer that I introduced in the last 6 months, and she's decided she wants to do Norse. And so I've created several Pinterest boards that I've shared with her, and she's been working with me and our costuming lead here on my barony, and to learn how she can really get better at using Pinterest and instructions and pictures of what things are, both historical, other things, other users, people that have done this before her. And I see there's a question. Okay, yeah. Yes. I think most of the kingdoms I'm aware of do have an active Discord server. Instagram. Instagram is still really big. Its largest group is right inside our demographic. The 18 to 24, and 2 billion active users, 1.35 to 2 billion. So it's huge. Again, this is great for us because we want to be using those really visual mediums. So anything where we can use video, especially, as well as photos, images, that's where we really, really want to be concentrating, especially for newcomers. Snapchat. The only challenge with Snapchat is that you upload things and then they disappear. So it's where you can kind of generate interest. I would think that, so maybe you have a large event coming up, or maybe you have some kind of a newcomer push. I think Snapchat would be great if you could find one of your users, your younger users, who would volunteer to be willing to do that, and then work with them to feed them the information and develop a posting schedule. Twitter, X, I think we've seen a decline in Twitter just because of the changes in the last year and a half. So I think it's important to understand that. I will give you the slides. I have them sorted. I've submitted them, so that's fine. So the takeaways from Twitter are basically, it's still in use, but I think that we're seeing it decline. So I would say if you have someone who's familiar with X, to go ahead and use it. It's still valuable, but I think it's still kind of a wait and see on how the platform is evolving or devolving, as the case may be. Okay, so now who owns what? This is there's a lot of different organizations that own the different platforms. So I just put this together. So Facebook owns Facebook and Messenger, obviously, and this would be Meta, Instagram, WhatsApp, Oculus, and Threads is their fairly recent answer to Twitter. Alphabet, Google owns YouTube, and Independent is owned by itself is Snapchat, Twitter, X, and Discord. So as you can see, Facebook owns several of the really top platforms that we use for social media. And most people don't know this, but YouTube is the #2 search engine in the world after Google itself. So just some things to keep in mind about how people are going to find you. Okay, so this is the actual demographic. So I found this. So average daily minutes spent in apps. So as you can see, this is kind of where people are spending their time: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, YouTube, and Twitter. These are active installs. Keep in mind that a lot of these installs are going to be mostly on your mobile phone. But if you use these platforms on your desktop, you don't necessarily download them. You're using a web app. So keep that in mind. So for example, YouTube, Snapchat and TikTok and Instagram are exclusively on your mobile phone. Twitter is a web app, and YouTube is also a web app, and Facebook is both download and use on your desktop. So that kind of gives you an overview of who's using what. And then as you can see, daily minutes spent in app, 95, 74, 51, 49, Snapchat down there. So this just kind of gives you an overview of who's using what and what's the most popular applications. Okay, so now we get to the content. So those are just kind of to give you an overview of who's using what and what's being used the most. So I think the marketing, developing the content is probably the most important part of creating a newcomer strategy. So you need to understand the purpose and types of content you're sharing, which platforms are more appropriate. Videos are most important, in my opinion, then pictures. And then what you want to do is you want to develop what's called a library of hashtags. So hashtags, the society has one. They currently have 3 main ones. So it's hashtag MySCA, hashtag ReGramMySCA, and hashtag current middle ages. So the hashtag ReGramMySCA was started originally for Instagram. And basically, if you use that hashtag as a user and you tag the SCA social account, you're giving them permission to reshare your photos or videos. And that is really super important because that's a way that you can use that, and it's now translated across all of the different platforms, as that's kind of I'm including the SCA social, which is generally at SCA social is usually the handle the society uses. You're allowing the society group to share your content in their efforts across the known world. So that's something I think it's really important to think about. And then when you're talking about, like, say you're having a special event, say you're having a tournament, you can use general crossover posting like archery, armor, fencing, equestrian games, calligraphy, costuming, history, king, queen, prince, princess, knight. I maybe use horse. You could use pottery. If you're having displays, use as many of those hashtags as are relevant for your interest, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to grab interest from people who aren't already following you. You're trying to really cross-pollinate concepts and interests to get people to see that we do some really cool things. And if they see it enough times, they're going to be more interested and they're going to want to check us out. And that could lead to us actually having more newcomers that are checking us out on social media, which is the goal of all of this. So one of the other things that's really important, if you are a social media officer or you're a deputy or you're involved in developing social media, you want to consider a posting calendar that's regular. And it could be once a week, it could be twice a week, it could be twice a month, it could be during specific events, but you really, really want to, the way you gather followers is you post regularly and you post engaging content regularly. And then what you want to do is you want to track your metrics over a quarter and you want to adjust your calendar based on the metrics. But it's really important that you understand the goal of what you're doing. And again, this is more for people that are targeting newcomers rather than advertising for internal SCA folks. So I really, really want to stress that you want to want to develop a calendar and you want to tweak it and track it as necessary. And usually quarter, 3 months is really pretty good. So then identify profiles outside the SCA to follow. So there could be, there are some people that maybe are involved in professional historical reenactment. They do equestrian games. There could be archery competitions in your kingdom, and you may have an account that you follow, and you can get more cross-pollination that way. And just make sure that you're following others' profiles that are relevant. And then the key to this is then you comment on things that they post. And it can be, oh, this is really great. At our in our Inter-Kingdom competition, in our regional competitions, we have 200 participants, and every August we tally up the winners. I'm thinking specifically of archery. So things like this is you want to interact and you want to kind of get yourself known out there. So it's more than just posting, it's also interacting. And then one of the biggest things I think is buy in and get support from your local populace and get your officers on board. You really, really want to make sure that you're having people in your own barony or your own group, your kingdom, really, really work with you to move into getting that buy-in and getting people. So when you post something on, say, Instagram, if your group has an Instagram account, include them. And that's the @ in my case, it would be Barony of Aquaterra, or it's the @ Kingdom of Ontir. So make sure that you're including other relevant SCA accounts when you're sharing things, and use those hashtags. I think we have a question. I'm waiting for it to respond. Do we have any questions? If you want to read questions, I can't see them right now.
There are no questions at this time.
Okay. So I'm going to, may need to close out and then come back in. I'm waiting for the program to respond. I don't know why my Zoom is frozen. I apologize.
No, that's okay. We can hear you fine.
I'll give you a few examples, like when I was using the Twitter account, when I was managing the Twitter account for the society. So I followed every kingdom that was out there, obviously. I tended to follow major baronies, major groups that were inside of our kingdom. If there were individuals that I knew inside of our kingdom, I would follow them. I followed the Penzik Twitter accounts. I also would follow, as I mentioned, archery accounts. I followed, there were some really, really good potters. So here in Ontir, we've got a beautiful pottery vendor, a merchant who creates period pottery. So I followed them on LinkedIn, or excuse me, on Twitter. And so that really, really, I was able to then share that information. I would sometimes make a comment, but then I would also reshare their information. And if they were working on, they mentioned they're working on a new Scythian pottery, then what I would do is I would then reshare that information out. And I do the same thing in my personal life on all of my accounts. And I use Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter for my SDA activities. I would say most of it is on Instagram, or Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest. So that's where I share a lot of information. But it's really a way of forming communities, and that's what all of this is about, is really, really forming active communities. So I'm going to leave for just a moment. I'm going to sign back in. I apologize. I just want to make sure that I've got this. I don't know what's going on with Zoom, so give me 1 second.
All right, we'll wait for her to get back. All right, that's a good question. How do social media officers find new groups? Is there a particular group, like SEA group? Yeah, sometimes it could be hard to find something. So normally when someone's like, hey, did you see that? I'm like, no, I didn't see that. That's in a group. And they're like, yeah, you should join that group. I usually am able to find it if I know like the group's title, or someone adds me to it or invites me to it. How let's see, make interesting stuff land on my feed. So it's all based on what you interact with when it comes to Facebook. So yeah, I would say, to answer your question, Lucy, it's all based on what we look at and like. I think it really comes from our likes and our comments, what Facebook will show us. So if I want to see more information that my barony is putting out. I'm going to go to the baronial page on Facebook and like and comment all their stuff so I see more of it. And then the same thing with a group. If you're in a baronial group and you're like, why didn't I see so-and-so's comment? Well, how often do you interact with that group? Do you go in there and you like stuff? Are you a top fan? Are you always commenting on stuff?
So we're back to where I was going. So this is a screenshot I took from the society event. So this I assume everyone knows who Lin-Manuel Miranda is. I'll assume that. If you don't know, he wrote he is a Broadway director, and he starred in he created and produced I always forget this several new things. Anyway, he was on vacation and he posted this. People, men and women, are fencing when we walked in. Turns out the Society of Recruitment Anachronism, that's a thing, camps out there 10 days a year and lives their best yield timey life. Well, I immediately send him an email, send him, this is our page. And if you look down here, if you can see right here, he has 2,700 likes, 175 retweets, and then 114 comments. So this is how you go viral, folks. This is what happens when you are able to capitalize on opportunity. So I wanted to show this just because this is an example of capturing the moment and then sharing it. And then I replied as the social media deputy for the society. I actually commented and I sent him the link. He's in New York, so I sent him the link to his local group because, well, I'm a chatelaine. I sent him a link to his local group, and there were a whole bunch of other people in the SCA that also replied under this. Now, do I know that this generated any newcomers? Maybe not, but it's free advertising and publicity. And as we all know, there's no such thing as bad publicity. So here's another example. This is Twitter. This is my personal Twitter account. I have multiple illumination boards. That's probably the majority of my SCA stuff. But here is something, and I keep track of who reuses the images that I post, and I get a significant number of people who take my content and then they repost it on their own boards. And I check those people out, and then if it looks like they may be interested in a lot of the same things, I might reach out to them and start a dialogue. So these are the things you want to think about when you are managing social media, or you're trying to consider building a social media campaign for newcomers and for attracting newcomers into reaching out to new people. So this is something that's part of DEIB. Most people may have heard of Master Charles de Bourbon. He actually is an Ontario. He's a friend of mine. He is a society officer, or the board of director officer that's kind of working on DEIB. And I'm partnering with him on a couple of different initiatives because we're doing some recruiting stuff. And I have done a lot of diversity recruiting as part of my day job. So I have a lot of experience with this. So when I go to events, usually it's going to be women in technology, or it may be members of the LGBTQ community, or anything that has to do with job. And you have panels. One of the things you hear is I look for people who look like me. That is something that you're going to hear from people that are they're not part of the majority. These are going to generally be ethnic minorities. So I look for people who look like me. That's a lot of what they say. So when you're evaluating a new job, you want to make sure that you're not going to be the first token Black person. You're not going to be the first token Hispanic person. So it's really, really important that we keep that in mind, and that as we are developing campaigns, that we include photos and videos of a diverse population. So that would be Black, Indigenous, Native Americans, First Peoples in Canada, Indigenous folks in Australia, New Zealand. We want to Hispanic, Latine, LGBTQ, physically disabled, different ages, including families. So we really, really want to make sure that we are portraying a wide variety, everything from age and ethnicity and ablement. We really, really want to show a wide diversity of members of our populace across the board. There is a thing called proximity bias, and proximity bias is you look for people, you're trying to find people who have similar interests or similar backgrounds or similar characteristics as yourself. So proximity bias, we can use that to our advantage. We want to, going back to interacting with populations that are different than us, or more, we include more people. This is where you want to find people. So there, for example, there was, I don't know if it still exists, there was a Twitter book of Black medievalists. I mean, that should be a no-brainer. That we would follow them and maybe make comments on some of the work that they're doing and some of the research that they are putting out. Social media, usually you can use it for two things. You can use it for recruiting, which is kind of the conversation we're having today, but marketing is also part of it. So when you're thinking of recruiting, when you're thinking of engaging with newcomers, I think you want to think of a couple of the ways that we generally will get people into the SCA. So the equivalent of bringing a friend to an event, a demo, whatever, is an employee referral. That is by far the most successful way. Is you meet someone who has an interest and you bring them to an event, you share information with them, you invite them to a demo. So these are really, really the key people. You want to find our peeps. You want to find the people that we're going to, they're going to align with us. So some ideas are, you can, one of the things that we're doing is we're having a large demo at the end of January for my group. Ontario has 2 large demos a year, one in June and one in January. My branch is the host for the upcoming demo at the end of January. And so one of the things that we're doing is every once or twice a week between now and the weekend before, we are getting dressed up and we're going to different places in garb. So we went to the mall. We're going to go to a Chuck E. Cheese. We're going to go to a Buster's. We're going to, go to, if we can find a medieval fantasy themed movie in between now and then, some of us will go to that in garb. Have a tabletop gaming night at your local game store in garb. Choose one of the games that would be relevant to our, like Empire Building or some of the ones that would be and then also have flyers with you. So, bring flyers, use QR codes to really, really show off your group. And then just make sure that you have a lot of information you could pass out to anyone who's interested. So those are some of the things that you can do that will help you just kind of get the word out there, as it were. So when I was the branch chatelaine for the Seattle group called Madrona, I was at a meeting one night and I asked anyone, do you have any other ideas of ways that we could, get more people interested? And one of the members of our populace mentioned, well, have you used meetup.com? And I looked and absolutely there was no meetup.com. So I created a meetup.com group, and it actually really, really, surpassed my expectations over like 15 months. So for the first year, I voluntarily paid the application fee, and then after that, I asked the barony to do it. I was able to do that. I'm not saying that everybody should. You can create a free account, but to really get the most out of it, you want to pay for it. But these are just some statistics. Only 35 of the new members that came have families, are looking for family-friendly activities. We got a lot of people that were moving in from other kingdoms, which really surprised me. They found us on Meetup versus going to our Kingdom of Baronia website. That really, really surprised me. But that's how we were able to get a lot of people that had moved from other areas involved in the SCA. I live in a tech area, so Seattle has a lot of people moving in and out. We've got military bases, and then we've also got a lot of people move here for the tech work. So we have a wide variety of mobile population that move in and out. So I do have this. I will share this, but there's a white paper that I wrote about that really basically goes over this. I just wanted to share that because there were some really, really good data points that I was able to pull from that.